Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of The Gavel, featuring attorney Anna Toledo. Ms. Toledo is the senior attorney and general counsel to Targeted Justice. She has a background in constitutional and environmental law and is an experienced litigator, including 2 cases at the U.S. Supreme Court. And here's Ms. Toledo.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode number 36 of The Gavel, where I am bringing you from DC the latest news regarding our plight against government weaponization, trying to set us all free. Today is a day that we really need to pray on this space because I have had so many inconveniences to get here before you. So we're going to do an invocation in a little while, but I am thrilled to bring you this week's news. I feel that there's something brewing, something really big is happening. So I'm excited to bring you what at least has come out so far. I'm your host, for those of you that don't know me, Ana Toledo. I'm an attorney with more than 30 years experience. I have been admitted to the Supreme Court. And to those people that like to criticize and don't know how hard it is to make it, well, if you're not an attorney, I'm not going to take criticism from you because I only take criticism from people that know what they're talking about. So I want the goal of this movement is to set us all free from government weaponization. And I'd like to invoke for this moment one of my favorite Bible verse phrases, which is found in Matthew 7, chapter 7, and verse 12, which goes like this: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I have to ask you, just think about it. Do you live your days like that? You know, that's the very well-known golden rule. Do you live your late days like that? Because my dad, when he was my dad would used to tell me lots of beautiful stories, and one of the stories he would tell me is that there was this young, this child. He was probably an adolescent. My dad lived in the mountains in a very poor, he didn't come from a family privileged means, and there was a young man, I would guess he was an adolescent, that people would mock him because he had some sort of mental retardation or something. But my father never did, because as many of you know, my father had a physical disability as well. And he told me how one night he fell on the steps in front of the house. It was 10 o'clock at night. He didn't want to scream because he didn't want to help. He didn't want to bother his parents. And that guy went by through the street. And he called him, please, can you help me get up again? Because he couldn't get up by himself. And he came and helped him. My dad never mocked him. And that's what he always told me. You never know who is going to be the person that you need the most and will help you when you most need it. So let's just that sink in. This week, we have great, first of all, I see that there's a lot of lagging. So the criminals are really upset that I am bringing you what I'm bringing you today. So on Monday, we celebrated Martin Luther King's Day. And as you know, the hypocrites of the FBI put this post out there celebrating Martin Luther King's Day. However, we want to do a little revisionism here because it is important for what they're doing to us. Let us not forget that, because the whistleblower Steve Friend was very quick to remind us of how criminal the FBI has been for decades. Okay, let me show you what Steve Friend put out, because I was shocked. So for those of you that haven't seen it, this is a letter that the FBI sent under the COINTELPRO years that you and I know were victims of that same stupidity. Well, they sent this letter. The FBI has admitted that on November 21st, 1964, they sent this letter to Martin Luther King, trying to make him to take his own life. This is how these criminals were way back then. They never apologized to his family for having done this. Just read that. That's sort of kind of the verbiage that the stupid V2K tells you. Let me just read you a little bit of it, because it is so disgusting, in my opinion. It is just so absolutely disgusting, and it's even more disgusting that they haven't apologized for it. Listen to this. King, in view of your low-grade abnormal personal behavior, I will not dignify your name with either a Mr., a Reverend, or a Doctor. And your last name calls to mind only the type of king, such as King Henry VIII, and his countless acts of adultery and immoral conduct lower than that of a beast. King, look into your heart. No, I'm sorry. I'm gonna leave this here. I cannot read this, because I know these are the atrocities that these criminals whisper to many of you in your V2K, and this is the same kind of verbiage that elements are trying to throw out to criticize the targeted justice team. And I'm not going to go for it, because I'm not going to give publicity to the criminals. But I want you to understand that these people have never repented, not only because they continue to do what they do to us with their COINTELPRO tactics, but also because they never even apologize for crimes like this of trying to incite him into suicide. So there you have it. The FBI criminals pretending to be nice guys celebrating Martin Luther King Day. Now, so thank you to Mr. Steve Friend for reminding us and teaching me, because I learned from him. This had come out in the church committee, this particular piece of evidence. So the neutralization of King eventually happened because, as we know, the CIA criminals murdered him. They couldn't get him to commit suicide, just as they haven't been able to do it with us, because we are walking miracles. But they had to murder him because they couldn't handle so much greatness. Okay, continuing with the handheld weapon saga that I started talking about last week, on January 14th, but it was told the next day, which was on Thursday, the House Committee on Homeland Security wrote to the, let me see if I have the document here for you. They wrote to Kristi Noem saying, Kristi Noem, we want to know if it's true that you have bought, that you're evaluating this piece of equipment, right? And here's the letter. Let me show it to you. And so I think this is great, because once and for all, we will know, right? If there is such a thing, a handheld device, or if it was all the psyop that I personally believe it is. Because remember, they're saying that they bought this a year ago, but they only talked about it the next day that journalist that I showed you mentioned how the people in Venezuela in the Maduro event of arrest started bleeding through their nose and vomiting blood, because the United States doesn't want to answer what kind of weapon it was. They came out with a psyop. Now, it's very good that the Committee on Homeland Security that is investigating reports, it's investigating the reports that they bought this weapon, and they want to know, they asked Kristi Noem, we want to know a detailed explanation of the procurement process used to acquire the device, the dollar amount, the results of the year-long testing period. Notice the timing, how perfect it is. It was supposedly disclosed the day after that guy talked about the Venezuela people vomiting blood, and the shirt, Maduro's shirt, with the blood in there. And what specific operational or analytical purpose did DHS have for acquiring the device? per Rule X and per Rule 10 and 11 of the House of Representatives. I think this is great because finally we will have an answer and we will put to rest the unfounded rumors. So for either way, it's good. You know, it's great news because for those of you saying that your neighbor has a directed energy weapon, I doubt he has $6 million to purchase it. And if you wonder, $6 million times the 6 million targeted individuals around the world, right? It's too much money. It's I did we had the calculation last week, and I think it exceeds the GDP of Russia. But anyways, that's good that the Homeland Security Committee is doing that, and I'm really happy that they are asking Ms. Noem for that. Now, the next good news is things are happening, okay? Things are happening. Candace Owens, as many of you know, she has been like a dog with a bone that won't let go on the Charlie Kirk investigation because we know that the FBI is lying and the state prosecutors are lying, right? And she's going at it. But in this process, she has been admitting, listen to this, that she is the
stalking.
Hold on.
It's just been going on for 2 years consistently behind the scenes.
Now they're just... Let me put it there. There you go.
And so they've colored the letters there on the text for watched, followed, we will follow. I don't even know what to say to that. Like I told you, they're unhinged. It's been going on, by the way. It's like gang stalking. It's just been going on for 2 years consistently behind the scenes. Now they're just kind of gone masked down and people are seeing it in front of the scenes. Like I just am not allowed to be fired from that company. And I don't know what to really say or do about that other than just to keep publicizing that I find their behavior to be alarming. It's discomforting. And there's something about this that feels very dangerous to me. And
there you have it. Candace Owens is talking about gang stalking. You can no longer be called crazy because she is, like we say in Spanish, she's putting the little bell on the cat. And so I think this is great. I mean, I feel bad that she's getting gang stalked, but I think it's great that it's like lava, you know, like the truth is slowly emerging in different areas. Okay, so that's good news that somebody with so much, and remember, I have told you many times, they pulled the Targeted Justice website when the reply I made to one of her comments, why don't you investigate the Anonymous Special Access Program, to one of the posts she made in Twitter had already 40,000 views. At 3 p.m. that day, they pulled the plug on targetedjustice.com. They are scared of Candace because Candace is a courageous woman. She's a brilliant woman. And I suggest you write to her. She has an email that is moretips, MORETIPS, @candace.com or CandaceOwen.com. I don't know which is her webpage, but CandaceOwens.com. And write her a nice letter telling her you are sniffing in the right direction. Keep on going. Don't put delusional things because that only works against her actually paying attention to what you're saying. Anyway, the next good news comes from our favorite of all times. Well, I don't know if it's him or Tulsi, but RFK. So RFK
5G does not tell you what's wrong with EMFs.
Let me put it back where it belongs here.
So how can
RFK is going to investigate 5G harm to humans. This absolutely, even though it's about the EMF damage, the investigation can be opened to many things as we know about it. Listen to him.
How concerned should we be about 5G towers, do you think?
I'm very concerned about it.
So like 9, 10?
Calling it 5G is actually a misnomer because that doesn't have to do with 5G does not tell you what's wrong with EMFs. EMFs are bad depending on the pulse rates and the wavelengths, and some of them are very bad. And in Europe, the regulations are an order of magnitude lower than what we allow here. But there are literally over 10,000 studies that document a number of ill effects, including cancer, tumor growth.
There you have it. By the way, I forgot to tell, because I'm just so please like, share, and subscribe, because I got a report today from X that I am like 80% or 90% shadow banned, and so is Targeted Justice. So we're only counting, we're in a silos. They only let the people from our community to see what we post because they don't want the truth out. But we're building a record. Don't worry about it. We're building a historic record, and then it'll be like my mom used to say, "I told you so." Okay, so I think this is really great that RFK is, because remember one thing, the 5Gs are in and of itself, they are a weapon. They can produce the microwave beam. The 3G and the 4G need to be in the panel array. Those go farther than the 5G, but they need to be equipped with a beamforming chip. So I think this is whichever way you want to look at it, it's good. Please, I'm going to be talking pretty soon about something really important, so do not go anywhere. Now, the Taco Bell troop strikes again. This is really very concerning. And when I talk about the Taco Bell troop, I'm talking about the morons at the FBI. Look at that. The pipe bomb is no such thing. An expert for the defense created an expert report saying, based on my review of the materials provided, the two suspected pipe bombs in question do not contain an explosive filler capable of causing an explosion. This is so ridiculous. They have been supposedly going crazy, looking for this pipe bomber. They finally accuse, after Steve Baker connects the dots on who the person is, then they charge an autistic young man that likes My Little Pony. So this is the kind of evidence that the criminals at the FBI have. A pipe bomb that could have never exploded. And that just really goes with the narrative of the following, which is that they planned, it's because they're so stupid. They planted these bombs to put the terrorists in charge against the J6ers. So they had to, make the jigsaw puzzle ready. And that's why they created these two bombs that didn't explode. But the expert said, based on my review of the materials provided, the two suspected pipe bombs in questions do not contain an explosive filler capable of causing an explosion. So it's kind of like, I don't know, a thief going into a bank with a toy gun. Well, that's different because people could have believed that. But here it says that the man is called Brennan Phillips, and he has a 32-page court filing that explains how they were toy bombs. Literally. So there you have it. The Taco Bell troop strikes again, doing, looking like the fools that they are. Now comes the most important part of this podcast today, and it's the following. The time has come to submit your comments to the committee that Rand Paul, remember how Rand Paul started the Quiet Skies investigation, and as a result of that, here it is. As a result of that, I did, for those of you that have not seen my Substack this week, please look at, that's not it. Hold on. Please look at it. And it says, it's your turn now, make it count. And in this post, I explained, I did the chronology of how they first, it was exposed by the federal air marshals that they were monitoring Tulsi. Hold on. Monitoring Tulsi in the airports, following her around and her husband. Then that was on November of 2024, after President Trump won. Then during Kristi Noem's confirmation hearings, many of you know that Rand Paul said to her, you know, you have you're going to be going into an agency that has $110 billion budget that they cannot even explain. Hi, Autumn. Thank you for being here all the time. That they cannot even explain what they do with the money. And as I have written before, it's not that they can't explain it, it's that they don't want to, because of the illegal stuff they do, including breaking into your house, following you around, damaging your cars, and killing your cat. They can't say that. So they don't want to confess their crimes. Then came Kristi Noem, and she shut down the Quiet Skies on June 5th, saying that it's a waste of money, $200 million a year, whatever. Then Senator Paul did the first hearings on the Quiet Skies, and that's when the federal air marshal came in there and said, oh, my wife was being surveilled, and Matt Taibbi and another attorney declared about the watch list abuses. Then he said in that hearing, and this is what matters to you, I need you here now. He said that he was going to keep the comment phase open until February. I don't know if that means February 1st or February 28th, but we're not going to take the risk. I need you to send your submission tonight. There's no excuse. Okay, listen. So in here, one of the great things is that Senator Rand Paul exposed the nomination form and the file, the FBI file of the wife of that federal air marshal that testified, Miss Christine Crowder, who happens to be from Houston and a teacher and an innocent person. She wasn't even in January 6th at the Capitol building. And so he gifted all of us that are filing our Privacy Act request with this wonderful example of how the nomination form looks like. And remember this, Miss Crowder was being followed around, but she didn't get the 4 S's on her boarding pass because she was in handling code 3, which is the one reserved for the non-investigative subjects. Okay? So she did not know that she had been in any way classified as a suspected terrorist. So what we have here is that we have each and every one of you. I need for you to submit your comments. We're not going to, I suggest, it is definitely, Emmy is the gift of the century. The two things are the gift of the century. The fact that we have also Tulsi Gabbard's, the evidence of all the flights they followed her around, because if you submit your Privacy Act request to TSA, they have to give it to you. And so now we have this evidence that Miss Crowder, because let me explain something to you that a lot of people don't understand. Most of us that travel, we don't get the 4 S's, right? But we know we're on the list. Now, the mechanism that Congress provided for people that thought they were unfairly placed in the list requires that you have the 4 S's in your boarding pass. That's a TREX process. If you don't get stopped, that is why most of us didn't get the 4 S's, because these criminals didn't want us knowing. Just like Christine Crowder, the reason she found out is because her husband is a federal air marshal. Okay, so I wrote and very humbly submitted to you a sample submission that you might agree or might not agree with it. But some people were asking, please, what should I write to Mr. Senator Rand Paul? So I wrote it there. You take whatever you want to take from it. I I have hyperlinks in there. For example, this same committee was the same one that under the Democrat majority, under the Senator Peters, did the mislabeled as a threat report where they exposed how people were illegally placed on the list and how it interfered with every aspect of their life. They cannot just simply brush that under the rug. And I put in there, people, people like us, and you have to say it. I am a victim, and I demand that you continue investigating this rabbit hole to the very end, because Quiet Skies was not the only problem. The problem starts at the crooked FBI that for profit put people on this list to profit from it. Okay. Now, just like I put in there, the FBI officials have admitted in court documents that the TSDB has never stopped an act of terrorism. Congress has never codified the terrorist screening database as an act of Congress. And the problem with that is the following, that gives the FBI ample margin to perpetrate their criminality of placing innocent Americans on it. If Congress had set the guardrails for this terrorist list, this wouldn't have happened. So just read it. I put it out there and just change it. I want you to understand that everything I wrote in there is based on documents I have. For example, when I mentioned as of 2020, 278 innocent civilians experienced daily events much worse than Gabbard and Crowder, I am referring to in the last 3 months of 2020 and the first 3 months of 2021, which coincided with the entrapment of the J6ers. The FISA court issued 278,000 warrants under Section 702 for spying on you, on me, and the rest. And that is evidence that Senator Paul has to go back and look in there and say, I want to see, because remember, this has to do with Boasberg. Why does it have to do with Boasberg? Because Boasberg was the chief judge in the FISA court during that time. You see how everything is connected here? Everything is connected. Everything from COVID, from everything. So I made it easy for you. I put here, it's important you put your contact information. I put here the email and the address if you want to send it by priority mail. What I do urge you from the bottom of my heart, as soon as you send your email, you call that number. And if a machine comes out, you leave a message. I just sent an email from this email address. I want to make sure it got there. And then you call the next day until they reply to you. Please, all you're asking for is please reply as acknowledged. In the bottom, you can say, please reply as acknowledged. I'm going to go to the questions at the end. So if you stay until the end, I'm going to scroll and look at them, okay? Now, Ron Johnson is the chair. Okay, so Senator Paul is the chair of the whole committee, Senate Homeland Security. But Ron Johnson is the chair of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. So there, I put emails of people on his staff, and in the subject line, you can say, please submit to Senator Johnson regarding the Quiet Skies investigations. Okay? Now, here, this little here takes you to a link. You can find the form here. I urge you that the same letter, this is how you're going to do it. You do it in a Word format, and then you send it to email there, and also you copy that entire email and send that form to the whistleblower form that I linked in there, which is the whistleblower form for the Homeland Security Committee. Okay? This is, I cannot emphasize to you how important this is for our plight. This is the first meaningful time, the first meaningful moment that we have had an opportunity to denounce how the illegal surveillance on average Americans obliterates lives. This is your moment to fight for your freedom. I urge you, do not put in there directed energy weapons. Do not put in there V2K. Do not put in there anything. Yes, I did put, it's part of an unacknowledged special access program, but I did not complicate the matter because what they're dealing with is illegal surveillance on average Americans. You can put in there, don't make it a 10-page letter, but you can put in there how there is something illegal called what was it? Breaking the illegal breaking, sneak and peek that they have been doing since the Patriot Act. You can also put in there, it is indispensable that you support Ana Paulina Luna's American Restoration Private Act, repeal FISA Section 702, and repeal the Patriot Act. Now, for the people outside the United States, please listen in, okay? Number one, as you saw in there, one of the questions that I put for Senator Paul is, you have to get Mr. Patel in a hearing, and you have to ask him, why is the FBI denying legitimate Privacy Act requests? The people in the 27 European Community countries have a right that the FBI and the DOJ and the DHS reply to their Privacy Act requests, and they have a right also, like Americans, to have the record corrected. If what the record says on him, like he's a terrorist, it's devoid of evidence, like in Ms. Crowder's case, then the agency has to correct it. Please remember, you need to send your Privacy Act request. We are creating groups throughout the nation because we are going to force them to comply. Now, for people like my dear Craig in Australia, I urge you to include language to the effect of this. When you look at the Terrorist Screening Center audit report 08/16, or you can generally just say their audit reports, they include people on these lists that are sent by FBI legal attaches without complying with the procedure to ensure that the person whose life is being obliterated for life is actually a terrorist. And the proof, and you have to say it this way, the proof that those lists are bloated with non-terrorists is that they are not in handling codes 1 and 2, which is 1 is suspected terrorist, and 1 is known terrorist, and 2 is suspected terrorist that get the 4 S's. The other ones don't. So that is what you have to plant in his mind and in his heart. Why do these lists contain all these names that don't get the 4 S's when flying? Okay, so that's I hope, Craig, that helps you. But I definitely need people from Europe and from all over the world, Latin America, everywhere, because you have to explain this is the only terror list imposed by the United States around the world. So the United States has the capacity to designate somebody that does not meet reasonable suspicion as a terrorist and thus destroy their lives with illegal surveillance, with stalking, with harassment. Okay? Now, again, please remember to send your Privacy Act request. You know that in the targetedjustice.com, there is, in the legal tab, there is an example in there. Remember that the statute does not give them the authority to charge you money to see your records, because if the law doesn't grant them that authority, they cannot make that up. So just look at the text and adopt it from there. Now, I think the deep state is really very nervous. And the reason I know this is because they have increased their slander and their personal ad hominem attacks against Richard and against me. And I know that some people are mind controlled. I think others probably work for the criminals. I don't know. I don't have that evidence, but it's just some things just strike me as too professional to be simple mind control. So, like I said, I don't pay attention to anybody that criticizes my work as an attorney and is not an attorney. If you're not an attorney, don't even go there, because I'm not going to accept it. Number two, what you have to see is the timing of the slandering. It's like we are doing Targeted Justice and the team and Dr. Bear and myself, we are fighting every day for freedom, and every day we get closer to it. And that's why the criminals are so nervous that they can only personally attack us to try to challenge our message. No, it's not gonna work, because we are transparent, because we are honest, because we're hardworking, and we have nothing to hide. And for those of you that have a problem with Richard Lighthouse, I call him Richard. I'm going to ask you, how many of the people in the community that are hardworking volunteers that do a lot of the community for the community, that I can tell you 10 names off the top of my head, but I'm not going to do it because I don't want anybody to start a fight with me that I don't need to start. But most of the people that are out there writing and having calls, etc., that's not their name. So stop the defamation. Stop repeating. When you repeat slander, you become liable, even if the person that originates the slander is not in the jurisdiction of the United States. When you repeat it, you become liable if you're here. Now, I'm going to share something really beautiful with you, because I read this. And by the way, I'm going to read you something that Javier, our Latin American vice president, sent me. He wrote me this message today, and I just had to share it with you because I feel exactly like that. He said, on this journey, he's targeted. He's building he has over 1,000 members in his organization for human rights, and he is steadfast. He's just a warrior. And he wrote to me, on this journey, I draw inspiration from Richard Lighthouse, a symbol of guidance and clarity that has steadfastly illuminated the horizon and reminds us that even in the midst of uncertainty, there is always a light that guides us towards truth and justice. And he couldn't have said it better. I totally agree with him. And I know from the bottom of my heart that you make an inventory. How many engineers do you know are targeted? 0, other than him that has a master's from Stanford. Why? Because the criminals didn't want an engineer to reverse engineer the technology, which is exactly what Richard did. Anyways, I want to bring you your attention. You have known that I have been very sad over the loss of Scott Adams. Scott Adams always taught us to change a bad thing, turn it into a good one, right? Like I've told you, when the gang stalkers would treat me really, really badly, I would just be like, oh, poor person. His girlfriend probably treats him badly. But that's how I would be, because I couldn't fathom that anybody would be so diabolical as to intentionally be mean to me if they don't even know me, right? So I wanted to bring you this Stanford University School of Medicine research paper from 2023 on neural plasticity and the impact of negative thought patterns on emotional regulation. Shows, get a load of this, repeated complaining physically rewires your brain to prioritize stress and negativity. Oh my God. If you are all day complaining about the horrible things that happen to you, then your brain gets used to prioritizing stress and negativity, which is exactly what you don't want, but it's exactly what the criminals want. Okay? So let me just read you a little bit of the summary of this. Look it up. Stanford University 2023 on neuroplasticity. That's why we need to practice gratitude. Okay? Because when you practice gratitude, you don't give a space. This is the here, let me add to stage. This is the picture that is associated to it. There it is. Repeated complaining weakens your brain and strengthens stress pathways. Oh my God. Okay. So here's the study. It says when we engage in chronic complaining, we repeatedly activate neural networks responsible for detecting threats and processing stress. Through the biological process of neuroplasticity, these circuits become stronger. So you're exercising them and more efficient every time they are used. Essentially, the brain learns to become more adept at finding things to be unhappy about. Oh my God, turning a temporary mood into a permanent biological predisposition towards negativity and fear-based thinking. I'm sure this is what the criminals have been doing to a lot of the people in the community, that they all see everything they see is doom and gloom. I say, we're going to be free. And then somebody over there says, nah, that's what you think, but it's never going to happen. That is one person whose brain has been trained to only see anxiety and bad and the glass half empty. So these negative pathways become the brain's default setting. Individuals often experience measurable increase in baseline stress levels and emotional volatility. The heightened sensitivity means that even minor inconveniences can trigger an intense stress response because the brain has been conditioned to interpret the world through a lens of threat. Findings discussed by Stanford University emphasize that while this mechanism is powerful, understanding the science of affective neuroscience is the first step in consciously redirecting those pathways towards more resilient emotional patterns. So the bottom line is, if you reframe your brain and out of a negative thing, you turn it into a positive. Like I've explained so many times, I carried a little backpack. Since these criminals, whenever you're going to a place where you're going to have to wait, they will put 30 people ahead of you, right? Well, I would bring my books, my noise canceling headphones, my coloring books, and I would, or my reading book, whatever. The point is, I did not waste my time. I spent it doing things that were pleasant to me, even though there were 30 gang stalkers in front of me, making me wait to waste my time, because this is what the criminals like, for you to waste your time instead of being fighting them. So anyways, let me just check if is something that I need to ask. I thank you so much for being here. I thank you for allowing me to be here in this fight. I'm just going to check one moment the comments to see if there is a question regarding the submission. Please, I really need you to make your submission to the Quiet Skies. It is okay. Here, to the person that wrote me Another Day of Surviving, I asked you, just like I just told you about this, reframe your brain, because you know what? When I wake up in the morning, I'm not kidding you, I tell you, I say, thank you, God, for another day that I can make history, another day that I can fight these criminals, another day that I can look at the beautiful sky. So that is one way of reframing that and going to a place where we're happier, okay? Because the criminals want us unhappy. Criminals want us to be sad and with anxiety and stress and angry. Don't give it to them. You can control this. Okay, beautiful songs. Yeah, I urge you, listen to beautiful songs. Don't listen to videos that make you, hi Shonda, hi Lorena, hi Jesus, to videos that make you sad. Okay, Marilyn, you need a lawyer. I'm going to tell this community, how many lawyers are there targeted? A lot. But I am the only one, that I'm here, and I am fighting for all of us to be free. Because if you want to be free, you have no idea how much I want to be free. I have a vested interest in making it happen. That's why I wouldn't gaslight you. That's why, I am coming from a place of honesty and integrity and dignity, what the criminals were never able to take away from me. So let me see if there's any. Hi, Targeted Justice. Hi. Thank you for not reading it. Yeah, Emmy. I'm sorry. I started reading that letter, but it was so horrible. That's the kind of evil soul that these criminals at the FBI, it's required. There's 2 requirements. You have to be evil, and you have to be no more intelligent than 100 IQ. That's my that's why, like I said in the live, I said, it's really insulting to me when somebody tells me, oh, she's FBI, because it's like, you're calling me dumb. No, I'm very smart. At least that's what my last IQ test said a long time ago, before I had all this Havana syndrome. Okay, incredible, insulting to the American people. They don't know anything about Havana syndrome. Thank you, Mr. Lighthouse. Thank you. You are, our rock, my rock, at least. We're not TIs. Targeted army. I love that, Liberty Justice. That is awesome. We are a targeted army. But remember, always peaceful. We are warriors, but peaceful warriors, because I don't want you to engage in any narrative that can hurt you. Remember, these criminals, they not only read your thoughts, they listen to your conversations. They even look everything that you look up in Google. They have a registry of it. So please be good to yourself and put yourself in a position that will give them the probable cause that they have never had. Okay? So I think, there's no stopping. There's too many of us. Okay. Well, I don't see any questions. Let me see. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to let you go. I really hope that you join me next week. Levi, I'm helping. It is very frustrating for me that people write to me, come save me, come help me. I am doing what I can. I am here fighting for everyone. I'm going to freeze to death this weekend, but it's okay. I swore I would never be in a cold weather again. And it's a huge, but most of you are going to be in this storm too. So, I saw a question here. That I cannot find, so I'll just address it for the next one. And just think, Craig, is Craig here? Yeah. People who have wasted their lives using this torture program will come to the fate. Yeah, look, the vengeance is God's. I leave it up to God. That is why, and that's biblical. That is why we don't have to worry about vengeance, except that we will sue them, and we will take the very last screw in the very last tire of their car. Yeah, they're going to have to walk, because they won't be able to even rent a scooter. Yeah, Congress didn't want to set the guardrails. Yeah, I'm going to make sure of that. I'm going to give my time to train attorneys into this, so that as soon as you get your Privacy Act request, you can go to an attorney and you can say, you can file this lawsuit for me. And that is my goal. And we are going to accomplish it, because Chuck Grassley and Senator Rand Paul, whether or not they did it for us, they opened the floodgates for us. So do not doubt for a second that we are in victory. Okay? The form, go to targetedjustice.com. No, the form is in my, the form for the Quiet Skies is in my Substack, anatoledo.substack.com. And it's one that I published 3 days ago. So it says something, the time is now. That's where it is, anatoledo.substack.com. I think it's in the show notes. That's my Substack. You can subscribe and not miss anything. I urge you to do that. Okay. Canadians. Okay. Light Seeker. I don't make the laws. Unfortunately, the privacy, you should submit to the Quiet Skies, because you are affected. Just like I said about Craig. You should submit and investigate the means by which the FBI criminals place people from foreign nations without doing their due diligence on this list. And the reason we know that they know you're not a terrorist is because they don't put you in handling codes 1 or 2 that are the only ones that are authorized by Homeland Security Presidential Directive number 6. So I urge you to write and say, as a Canadian, my life has been affected because of the illegal conduct of the FBI that I want you to investigate, because all watch lists begin at the FBI, even those of non-investigative subjects. No, nobody has their terrorist screening center ID except, for example, Christine Crowder. So the reason why it's on the form, it's because, you know, you can look by my name, my last name, my social security number, and the terrorist screening center number you assigned to me, which of course I don't know. But it's just so that they don't say, we didn't find anything, because they filed it under that number. Okay, so that's the reason why that is there in the form. Thank you, my dear Craig. Yes, please write it, and perhaps you could post it so that other people can copy, because you're so good with words. Maybe other people, if you can post it, I can repost it. Other people, you can write an article in Facebook, and other people can copy your post to the Senate Homeland Security Committee. Okay, so please do not. I want you all to have sent it by the end of February, of January, because he said that the investigation would accept submissions only until February. Let's not miss this opportunity. Complaining doesn't cut it. Doing what you need to do to make your voices heard does. Okay? And it's not just sending it to the various addresses I gave you, because we want to make sure. It's also calling and making sure they got it, so they cannot sweep it under the rug. Okay. Thank you, Shonda. Okay, well, write to me, because we certainly need the volunteers. We're always needing volunteers to help us. So thank you, everybody. And please send your submissions to the Quiet Skies, send your Privacy Act request, and come see me next Wednesday for next week's Gavel, which is, I'm sure I'm going to have great news for you. I just know it. Bye-bye. Good